If you live in Southern California, you know the feeling. The air gets dry, and suddenly, offshore winds are tearing through the narrow mountain passes. Santa Clarita sits right in the path of these funnels. Depending on where your neighborhood is located, maybe near a canyon mouth or an elevated ridgeline, your home might be exposed to localized extreme gusts that completely bypass a house just a few blocks away. These Santa Ana winds do not behave like a normal afternoon breeze. They are aggressive, high-pressure systems that grab onto the exterior materials of your home and actively pull at them. This diagram shows exactly how that pressure works on your roof. Notice how the moving air accelerates over the peak. As it does, it creates an invisible suction effect, called uplift, that actively pulls your shingles upward. The real threat here is rarely a massive, catastrophic tear. It is the way that uplift targets microscopic, unseen weak points along the edges of your roofline. You might step outside after a windstorm, see your shingles generally in place, and assume you made it through unharmed. But often, the seals are already broken, quietly waiting to fail the moment the weather shifts. Looking up at your roof from the driveway is an unreliable way to gauge its health. From the ground, flat materials almost always look intact. But up at the attic level, the reality is often very different. High winds break adhesive seals, shift the protective underlayment, and loosen the mechanical fasteners. Look at this comparison table. This is the financial trade-off every homeowner faces. On the left, you have a controlled schedule and a known low cost for proactive maintenance. On the right, you have an unpredictable timeline and a highly expensive emergency. Reactive repairs come with a heavy price tag for secondary damage. You're paying for saturated insulation, ruined ceiling drywall, and the premium surcharges of emergency tarping. These costs compound long after the wind stops. Keep in mind, the wind itself doesn't cause the water leak. It simply opens the door. That hidden damage sits quietly on your roof, waiting for the first seasonal rainstorm to expose the flaw. Skipping an annual inspection might feel like saving money today. In reality, you are trading a minor, scheduled inconvenience for a highly probable financial headache down the road. To protect your home, you need a systematic approach. This is a pre-season vulnerability scorecard, and we start right at the top, the perimeter and the edges. The architectural edges of your roof, the eaves, the rakes, and the ridgelines, are exposed to the fastest air movement. They take the absolute hardest hit from sudden pressure changes. Over a hot summer, a single starter shingle can dry out. The adhesive bond degrades, leaving the very edge of your roofline just slightly loose. When the Santa Ana winds arrive, they use that tiny, unsealed gap as a mechanical handhold. Every gust violently pries that shingle upward. Once that overlapping weather barrier is broken at the edge, the wind peels the roof back layer by layer, exposing the vulnerable wood decking beneath. Beyond the shingles, look at the valleys and gutters. Clogged drainage paths filled with leaves and dried branches act as severe risk amplifiers during a wind event. Wind-blown debris gets compacted into dense dams in these drainage areas. When the rain follows the wind, that water cannot drain properly, forcing it to travel sideways directly underneath the remaining shingles. Ignoring the perimeter allows the wind to dismantle your roof from the outside in. What could have been a fast, cheap resealing job quickly becomes full structural exposure. Let's move down our scorecard to tile alignment and flashing. There is a dangerous myth that heavy clay or concrete tiles are immune to Santa Ana winds. The weight of the tile does not guarantee resistance. Wind pressure easily shifts, slides, or rotates those tiles once the mortar or mechanical fasteners degrade. If you grab a ladder to check this yourself, you risk making the situation worse. Untrained foot traffic easily cracks those fragile tiles, creating entirely new entry points for water. Wind also targets the roof's transitions. The flashing around your chimneys, vents, and skylights is actually the most common origin point for post-wind leaks. Correctly installed metal step flashing is designed to physically block water. Unfortunately, the common DIY fix is just a smear hardware store caulk over a suspected leak. That caulk is a maintenance material, not a waterproofing system. Wind vibrations will instantly crack and break brittle DIY sealant, destroying your secondary water barrier. Trying to cut corners with surface caulk or attempting to walk a tile roof yourself compromises your home's core defenses. It practically guarantees a leak when the weather turns. Plotting effort versus risk. The bottom left visual guess leaves your home at high risk. This leads to the red zone, a reactive emergency with massive damage. The green zone uses a small upfront professional inspection to draw up your long-term risk. As a homeowner, operating in this green zone isn't an optional chore. It is a mandatory, high-yield financial hedge against the inevitable weather. Think about exactly where your property sits. If you face an open hillside, a canyon mouth, or an elevated ridgeline, the topography naturally amplifies wind speeds against your walls. If you have an older roof, your materials have spent years baking in the sun. Brittle shingles and dried-out sealants drastically lower your roof's resistance to uplift. And even if your roof is brand new, it still requires maintenance. You must clear gutters and verify flashing annually to ensure drainage paths remain open. Do not wait for a microscopic wind defect to transform into a massive interior disaster. Once winter rains drop, a compromised roof offers zero protection. Protect your property value and secure those vulnerable edges. Lock in your pre-season inspection right now by contacting Roof Repair Santa Clarita.